Assalamu alaikum. Let's wait for another minute to finish the salah, inshallah. أعوذ بالله السميع العليم من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله والحمد لله والصلاة والسلام على سيدنا رسول الله وعلى آله وصحبه من والاه، وأشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له، وأشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله صلى الله عليه وعلى آله وأصحابه أجمعين. اللهم لا سهل إلا ما جعلته سهلا، وأنت إن شئت تجعل الحزن سهلا. اللهم إنا نعوذ بك من أن نشرك بك شيئا نعلمه ونستغفرك لما لا نعلمه. ثم أما بعد. We are still discussing Kitab Ihya Ulumuddin, the third quarter, program Muhlikat, destructive things. And next time, inshallah, we'll be talking about a particular chapter Imam Ghazali elaborated on, and he titled it Kasru Shahwatayn, the breaking of the two desires, mainly food and sexual passion. And he will argue there that eating until we are full is one of the main sources of evil. But before we get into this, we'll continue our discussion regarding as-suluk ila Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. The word as-suluk, or maslak, the word maslak or madhab or suluk means our journey to Allah subhanahu, our spiritual journey to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And Imam Ghazali said that what prevents people from reaching their destination, which is al-wusul, arrival to the presence of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, to have Allah always in the heart and to devote our entire life to Him. To reach this highly spiritual level, then you have to take the journey. Al-mani' min al-wusul, adam al-suluk. The reason why people don't arrive to the divine presence is that we don't take the journey, don't take the trip, don't hit the road. And why we don't take the trip? Because there's no irada, there's no will. You know, we say there's a will, there's a way, right? And there's no will. We are not interested. And why there's no will? He said because there's no iman. And why the iman is not there or very weak? He said because there are no scholars to guide people to this. At that time, as we mentioned before, Imam Ghazali was very critical to scholars who spend their entire life studying nothing but the details of fiqh and theology and debate between madhahib and arguments and so on. And he said all this is not useful knowledge. If very few scholars study these things, that would be sufficient, but the problem is people seek knowledge to get jobs. And what kind of knowledge that gives people jobs? Fiqh. Right? If you are a faqih, then you get a title, mufti or faqih or judge or hired as Imam or work with the government and so on. This is what really, people compete on this. But he said that's not the real knowledge. That's not the knowledge of dunya. That's not the knowledge of al-akhirah. So he said one of the reasons why people's iman is weak is because the ulama are not talking about the real issues. What are the real issues? How to achieve paradise, how to get closer to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, how to focus your attention and your intention to achieve the pleasure of Allah in al-akhirah. So what he said, for those who want to live, those who have the irada, those who have the will, and determined to go in this spiritual journey, to arrive to the final destination, this is what they need to know. They need to know that there are some conditions. And this road, as we mentioned before, is not going to be easy. Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, in the hadith, he said that حُفَّتِ الْجَنَّةُ بِالْمَكَارِهِ وَحُفَّتِ النَّارُ بِالشَّهَوَاتِ. The road to Jannah is surrounded by difficulties and hardship and mujahada. And the road to Jahannam is paved by desires, right? And always people, most of the people, they use the easy way of fulfilling their desires that leads to Jahannam wal-'iyadhu billah. So he said, for those who want to take the journey, they must understand our conditions, and there are armors that they have to keep with them all the time. And there are some wada'if or practice that they have to do all the time as long as they are in this spiritual journey. He said one of the main conditions here is to remove the obstacles. And he called it al-hijab. Right? رفع السد والحجاب الذي بينه وبين الحق. What are these obstacles? And these curtains that you must remove between you and al-haq, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And he actually quoted this ayah, وَجَعَلْنَا مِنْ بَيْنِ أَيْدِيهِمْ سَدًّا وَمِنْ خَلْفِهِمْ سَدًّا فَأَغْشَيْنَاهُمْ فَهُمْ لَا يُبْصِرُونَ. If you have all these sudud, or dams, or walls, then you cannot see anything behind. So you have to remove all these obstacles or curtains. What are these curtains? He said mainly four. These four obstacles you must remove from your way in order to take the journey. You cannot take the journey with these obstacles in your way. What are these four things? He said, al-malu wal-jahu wal-taqlidu wal-ma'asiyah. He said the wall of wealth, the wall of honor or prestige, and the wall of madhahib, and being fanatic to one madhab, theological madhab or fiqh madhab. And number four, ma'asiyah, committing sins, or being addicted to sins. Wealth, Imam Ghazali, of course, is presenting, we're talking about a very high standard. And he said that as long as our hearts are attached to money, there's no way you can take the journey. That is one of the obstacles. If you cannot remove from your way, you will not even take the first step. As long as you are so much attached to your properties and wealth and money, then that's not going to be easy. We know that many of the Sahaba were extremely wealthy, but again, they control the money. No, money did not control them. They make money, they are business people like Uthman, radiallahu anhu, Umar, Abu Bakr as-Siddiq, Abdurrahman ibn Auf, and others. This is their job, they do business. But again, money is not in their heart, not controlling them. They control the money. Wal-jah, prestige, fame, honor, is a great fitna. It could be actually like the fitna of al-mal. And many people actually can pass the fitna of al-mal, but they cannot, pass the tests of fame and honor and so on. And al-ma'asiyah. Then he talked about al-jah, or the honor. He said the way is stay away from any prestigious position, be humble, and they use the word al-khumul in Arabic. The Sufi tradition, they use the word al-khumul, ithar al-khumul, to prefer al-khumul. Al-khumul here does not mean kasal or laziness. Al-khumul means not to be famous. Because again, fame is so attractive. So attractive. And Ghazali is talking about the competition between scholars. And that's real. Unfortunately, that's real. attend national conferences, you can see that. You know, it's real competition and who has more audience and who sells more books and CDs and YouTube likes and all these things. It's real competition. It's not like imaginable thing. It's real. So staying away from this is good, because the light that comes from cameras around it's a big fitna. It's always good to stay away from this. Try to benefit people as much as you can, but try to stay away from this thing. And we have now this phenomenon of superstars or rock star shuyukh or scholars or speakers that they're very expensive and they require minimum hundreds of people to attend the place and so on and so forth. And he said that it's always good to stay away. Don't seek this high prestige. Otherwise, that obstacle will never allow you to take this spiritual journey. Hijab al-taqleed, he's talking about the fourth thing is taqleed. At that time, it's still, people are so much fanatic to their madhab. At that time, you have this war going on between the Asha'ira and Mu'tazila and Maturidiyya, debating, theological issues and also the madhab. There were hundreds of madhab, in fact. We know 4 of them, but there are hundreds. There were hundreds of madhab, hundreds. So many madhab. Imam al-Awza'i, Imam Sufyan al-Thawri, Layth ibn Sa'd. All these were great scholars and followed by students, but their madhab did not live for so long. The 4 madhab we are familiar with have been served very well. When so many other students came and they wrote about the methodology and the structure of their madhab, and then this madhab became very well established and they were well known. But until now, actually, we read the opinion of Layth ibn Sa'd and Sa'id ibn Jubayr and the madhab of the Sahaba, Abdullah ibn Abbas. It's a school of thought. Right? And Abdullah ibn Mas'ud, radiallahu anhu, Ali ibn Abi Talib. The madhab spread in Iraq. Imam Ali ibn Abi Talib went there, and Abu Hanifa actually was influenced, and he's one of the followers of this school of thought. But we know these 4 madhab, and again, people used to defend their madhab as if their madhab is a religion, is not an interpretation of it. Interestingly, all these great 4 imams, all of them said, don't follow us until you understand our dalil, And Imam Abu Hanifa, when he saw his students, especially Abu Yusuf, writing everything he says, and he said, well, are you writing everything I say? I may say something today, and tomorrow I change it, so don't do that. And Imam al-Shafi'i said the same thing. إذا صح الحديث فهو مذهبي. If the hadith is sahih, this is my madhab. If I said something and then you found, hadith sahih against what I said, ignore what I said. ضربوا برأيي عرض الحائط وليس عرض الحائط، عرض الحائط. Imam Ahmad, the same thing. Don't just follow people without understanding where they come from. So about this ta'assub, people defending the madhab, and Imam Ahmad ibn Hanbal, one of these 4 great imams, there were 100+ fatwas that he's kafir, is zindiq, he's out of Islam. Many of the great scholars have been abused, many of them were imprisoned, many of them were tortured, many of them were killed. Imam al-Tabari, one of the greatest minds in Islam, mufassir and theologian and linguist, and he's an amazing person, amazing. He was under home arrest. He stayed in his house for years before his death. And his janazah, just very few people were allowed to just walk in his janazah because he was considered kafir also by the ulama, because of the competition and envy. This great man that we remember and read his tafsir up until now, all those who came, he's the first one to write a book of tafsir from A to Z, tafsir bil-ma'thur. For every ayah he mentioned the hadith and the aqwal of the sahaba in this ayah. It's just amazing. You don't know, how did he do that?
What was his name?
Imam al-Tabari. And his book also, Tarikh al-Tabari, is one of the greatest books in history. So just examples of how ta'assub fanaticism actually was one of the disease at that time, and still, up until now, people just, defend that without understanding anything. وأما المعصية فهي حجاب لا يرفعها إلا التوبة والخروج عن المظالم وتصميم العبد مع ترك العود. The obstacle of sins is to be removed by quitting these sins and repenting constantly and regret the sins committed in the past, and to be determined not to do this again in the future, and to know that sins actually is a great obstacle on our way. If these four conditions are fulfilled, then he needs also to follow or to seek protection in four fortresses, hisn, as it's called hisn, like a fortress or qal'a. These four fortresses are al-khulwat wal-samt wal-ju' wal-sahar. Al-khulwa, isolation or what do you call it, seclusion. As-samt, speechless. Remain silent, don't talk so much. Wal-ju', hunger. Was-sahar, sleeplessness. Sleeplessness now, when we talk about it, it's like a kind of disease. But he means that sleepless. Eat less, sleep less, speak less, and stay away from people as much as you can. Called al-khulwa. You know when the Prophet ﷺ used to go to Ghar Hira, and then the wahy came to him, that's called khulwa. Right? And many Sufis actually have their own, within their own house, khulwa, a place nobody goes to except him or her, and just stay there. And the Quran talked about Maryam alayhi salam, وَاذْكُرْ فِي الْكِتَابِ مَرْيَمَ إِذَا انْتَبَذَتْ مِنْ أَهْلِهَا مَكَانًا شَرْقِيًّا for ibadah, seclusion. So seclusion is important. And he talked actually about this when he mentioned this story when one of the shuyukh told his students, he said, just guide me to something that makes my heart feel the presence of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. He said, don't look at people. Looking at people is dhulma, brings darkness to your heart. Then he said, I have to, I know people are around me all the time. He said, then don't listen to what they say. Because their speech is qaswa. Qaswa makes your heart hard. Harden your heart. He said, I have to talk to people. He said, then la tu'amilu. Don't have any transaction. Don't, get involved heavily in their business. He said, I cannot stop that. He said, then la taskun ilayhim. Sukun, as we mentioned before, sakina or sukun is to settle somewhere. So la taskun ilayhim. In other words, don't feel intimacy in staying with people all the time. And he said, what was the purpose of that? He said, you want to look at the people are heedless, and to listen to what ignorance is saying, and to have transactions and to interact with people who have no purpose. And then you want Allah to be in your heart all the time. Now, this idea of isolation or seclusion or not to mingle with people, not to have this ongoing interaction with people. What do you think about it? Do you think it is useful for our heart? Stay away from people as much as you can. It is not to mean not to be social, but be careful, because sometimes people harm you without you knowing it. Most of the people are heedless, and most of them are ignorant, and most of them have no Allah in their heart, and they have no intention of reaching your goal. So you are in your own journey. So if you look at people and say what they say and interact all the time with them, then you will take with their own way. Heedlessness. Forget about Allah. You're not dealing about money, business, cinemas, movies, sports, stocks, fashion, socialization, politics, and it's all waste of time. You're wasting your time. People backbite all the time, talk badly about others, criticize this, insult that, debate politics and so on. Everything else is open for debate. So the idea is that even though you have to talk to people and interact with people, you cannot totally ignore this, but he said just have to be careful. We talk about peer pressure, our children, but we have also our own peer pressure as adults. It's not only children's problem, it is also our problem. Because we are the product of the society in which we live, right? So we have to be just careful. Choose some good friends, say salam, and when we're invited to weddings and things, just go and sit there and try to be careful. Because you don't want to hear everything being said. You don't want to be part of useless discussions and talks. This will make your heart covered with darkness and to become hard. It will be difficult for you to go back after all these social events and talking about this and that, then go back and pray Qiyamul Layl or feel the sweetness of Salah. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said, وَلَكِنَّ أَكْثَرَ النَّاسِ لَا يَعْلَمُونَ. Every time you read the Quran and you find, or you Google it, or try to find any website that can find words in the Quran, and search for the word أكثر, or أكثر الناس, or أكثرهم. Most of them, the majority of them, the majority of people, it's always negative. لكن أكثر الناس لا يعلمون. لكن أكثر الناس وأكثرهم فاسقون. منهم أمة مقتصدة وكثير منهم ساء ما كانوا يعملون. Every time I talk about the majority of the people, you can find something negative. People are ignorant. They are not interested in Akhirah. Most of the people are not thankful, right? قليلا ما تشكرون, right? قليل من عبادي الشكور, and the word few, قليل منهم إلا الذين آمنوا وعملوا الصالحات وقليل منهم. Those who believe and do righteous are very few compared to the majority of people. ولكن أكثر الناس لا يعلمون ولكن أكثرهم يجهلون. Most of the people are ignorant. So be aware of the effect of people, influence of people on you. He talked about al-ju', which we'll be talking about next chapter, and he said, يُنْقِصُ الدَّمْ وَيُبَيِّضُهُ وَفِي بَيَاضِهِ مِنْهُ. These are like medical and Sufi terminology also. He said, al-ju', hunger, we feel this in Ramadan. يُنْقِص دَمْ الْقَلْبِ وَيُبَيِّضُهُ, makes your blood thinner. And this is healthy, good for your heart and good for your spirit as well. And we can feel this in Ramadan, subhanAllah, when we're not focusing on food and we are hungry. We are less likely to think about evil or sins or anything like this. So one desire is controlled by the other. The sexual passion is controlled by what we put in our stomach. That's why when we eat too much, we are more likely to think about wrong things. That's why al-ju', hunger, not hunger to starve. This is not what he means, but it's always, as Rasulullah said, 1/3 for your food, 1/3 for your drink, and 1/3 for your bread, right? So, and he said that the best thing to do when it comes to food, he said that Imam Ghazali mentioned a story when they have like 4 doctors, one Persian, one Roman, and one African, and one from Arabia, and so on. So they asked them about a thing that is all medicine and there's no harm in it. So everyone mentioned some like seeds or herbs, but the last one actually said, no, I know a thing that is purely medicine and there's no harm in it. They asked him, what is it? He said, you don't eat until you really want to eat. And when you start eating, you leave the food even when you still desire it. So don't eat until you really need to eat. Okay? And when you eat, leave the food while you are still desiring. You understand? So don't eat until it is time to eat. Because when you put food on top of food and on top of other food, then this will cause laziness, and you'll feel heavy, and then you sleep more, and this makes your heart, first of all, your heart will be full of desire of food, and then you'll have no time or power or energy to do anything meaningful when it comes to spirituality. So al-jua is important. Amma sahar means to, you know the word sahar?
Morning.
Morning? No, sahar is morning, early morning, before Fajr. Najjaynahum bi-sahar. As-sahar, or the time before Fajr. But sahar with the ha, with the ha, sahar, like sahran.
Stay late.
Stay late, yeah. Sahar means, man talab al-ula, sahir al-layali. Arabs used to say that. Man talab al-ula, those who want to achieve, make big achievements, then they have to spend long nights working. Others are sleeping, but because you want to achieve something big, then you have Man talab al-ula, those who seek high degrees or achievements, sahir al-layali, right? So sahar is to stay late in the night, right? Sleep a few hours, but spend most of the time. And he said that this actually cleans your heart and illuminates your heart. When you, of course, not sleep is watching movies, of course. It's not. He said to spend the night, in ibadah, in dhikr, in tilawat, Quran. This is how we illuminate our heart, bring light to our heart, and to remove love of dunya. And of course, Salat al-Qiyam, Rasulullah used to pray, Ya ayyuha al-muzammil qum al-layla illa qalila nisfahu, aw unqus minhu qalila, aw zid alayhi, wa rattil al-Qur'ana tartila. You know the ayat. وأما الصمت فإنه تسهيلة العزلة. Samt, as he will talk also in the next chapter, after the breaking of two desires, he will talk about afatul lisan, the effect of the tongue, and the problems, or the problems that people have with their tongues, misuse our tongue. And he said, he quoted the hadith in Bukhari. Rasulullah said, "Man kana yu'minu billahi wal yawmil akhir falyaqul khayran aw liyasmut." Those who believe in Allah and the day of judgment, the day of judgment, then he should say what's good or remain silent. Now, Ghazali, as we mentioned, he said that when you speak, you either speak good or evil. Evil is bad, of course. There's no doubt, right? So most of what people say is not good, right? It's bad, or useless, or good. So useless, lahu, we should not say lahu, and evil stuff we should not say it. So let's focus on the good things. He said when you say good things, like teaching or making dhikr or reading Quran, and this could be also contaminated with bad intention, or doing this for showing off. Or we say something that looks or sounds good, but the intention is not good, and therefore, even when we say good things, we still have the risk of misusing our tongue. It's always better to remain silent. And when Rasulullah said, إِذَا رَأَيْتُمُ الرَّجُلَ صَمُوطًا وَقُورًا, when you see someone who's samut from the samt, fa'ul, like ajul and akul, like the word ghafur. Samut means most of the time he is silent. And waqur means he acts with tranquility and sakina. فَادْنُ مِنْهُ, come closer to him. فَإِنَّهُ يُلَقَّنْ الْحِكْمَةِ, because hikmah is given to him. Very few people who speak when they really need to speak. Rasulullah was like that. He listened to people. And when he speaks nothing but the truth. Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam. So these are the four things that he said that you must have. So the four conditions, right, or obstacle that you have to remove: wealth, honor, taqleed of the madahib, and sins, and the four fortress, 4 important things that you must do. And as he mentioned before, we talked about this before, and he said that the road, and that this long road, is not going to be easy. And one of the main things that we have to keep in mind is that مخالفة الشهوات. مخالفة الشهوات, مخالفة الهوى. We mentioned the ayah before, وأما من خاف مقام ربه ونهى النفس عن الهوى. نهى النفس, stop your nafs from fulfilling every desire we have. If everything we desire we do, then our heart will be filled with these desires. We have to remove these things. Remove these things from the heart. Otherwise, if you really want the heart to be filled with the love of Allah and feel intimacy with the dhikr of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, then you have to remove this attachment and love of this desire. If you finish one desire and then you want to start another, and finish that second and then you want to fulfill the third, and the third will take you to the fourth, and the fourth will take you back to the first. And from one desire to the other, then there will be nothing left in your heart for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. I will stop here, inshallah, and next time we'll be talking about breaking the 2 desires, and we'll talk in depth about the desire of food and the sexual passion, and how these 2 desires are the source of destruction of the iman of many people, and the source of so much evil people commit. And these 2 desires must be controlled, and he will talk about them in detail. We'll talk about them next time, inshallah. Any comments or questions?
أستاذ هناك سؤال بسيط عن موقف الغزالي.
نعم.
أنا لا أتفق مع آراء ابن رشد وابن قيم عن صدد الغزالي، ولكن أليس هذا صحيح أنه أكثر الغلو في متابعة الصوفية؟
The question is about whether Imam Ghazali followed the Sufi tradition in excess.
Exaggeration.
Huh?
Exaggerated
in following the Sufi tradition. Well, there's no straightforward answer to this, but what I observed is that Imam Ghazali has his own journey. Every one of us has his own journey. Everyone has his own story. Imam al-Ghazali arrived to the opinion that the tariq al-tasawwuf is the right tasawwuf did not come out of taqleed or following. No, it came actually after deep and long study. He studied the way of, he said, actually in one of his books, I think in the beginning of Ihya, he studied the manhaj, the way of philosophers, and the way of the mutakallimin, theologians, and the way of the fuqaha, and the way of Sufi. And Imam Ghazali is a philosopher, and he is a theologian, and he is a jurist, he is a faqih, mutakallim, filasuf, and Sufi. So, and he actually, in his own personal experience, he said that I found out that philosophy, theology, and fiqh are not really taking us anywhere. That's not the way to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So, you may actually find that he exaggerated, but with a person like Al-Ghazali who's wrote to have to falasifa, he's not just a philosopher, he actually, he criticized the Greek philosophy. To study and to understand the Greek philosophy is a big thing. But to be able to criticize it from within as a philosopher, that's huge. And then he was a theologian himself. It's Ash'ari. And he's Shafi'i and he's Usuli, not only Faqih, but he's Usuli as well. He wrote Al-Mahsul and other books in fiqh and usul. So he actually is coming from within, he's not from outside. He's not like a Sufi but not faqih, does not know what the fuqaha are doing or what the philosophers are doing. He knows exactly, in depth, this science. And he actually took himself out because he was a great professor in Nizam al-Mulk school. They established school for him, and he was the head of this school. People come from everywhere in the world to study with him. And he decided because he actually practiced self-criticism, he found out that what am I doing? I'm teaching usul and teaching philosophy and theology and madhahib and all these details. But how would this benefit me? I got the fame, I got the money. I'm doing this for money and for fame. How would this help me in the day of judgment? How would this bring me closer to Allah? He said, no, stay out of all these things. Tasawwuf, that's called Ihya, Ulumuddin, the revival of the science of religion. All these things are tools of dunya, ilm al-dunya, that this fiqh, it helps you in this dunya. Like, you need an accountant or a lawyer or a guard. You need a faqih to tell you how to distribute your wealth between your children, and to tell you what to do with your zakah and things like this. And this science is not going to take you closer 1 inch to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala.
لكنه في كتابه المنقذ من الضلال فإذا قررنا أنه يغلو كثيرا في هذه.
Like what do you think in specifically?
هو يقول مثلا أن طريقة الصوفية فقط وهم سالكون على طريقة النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم وعلى طريقة.
Well, and the word Sufiya in his time is kind of different from Sufiya as we understand it now. Because at that time, the Sufis, talk about Junayd and Sufyan al-Thawri and Al-Hasan al-Basri, they were all scholars. They were not just Sufis and ignorant, like many people call themselves Sufis now. Because the word Sufi is a very vague. Who is Sufi? What is the definition of Sufi? And everybody can claim Sufi. But at that time, when you look about these great shuyukh, they had taqwa and iman, and they had fiqh, right? And they are mujahideen fi sabilillah. Hasan al-Basri he went to Al-Hajjaj ibn Yusuf al-Thaqafi and challenged him. He challenged him. And Hajjaj, very easy for him to kill. He killed people in the Masjid al-Haram. And people of Iraq, he told them, he gave a khutbah when he was hired. And he said, listen, people of Iraq, I'm not here to, I'm not kidding with you. I will give you an order. If you follow it, I'll cut off your head. He said that. He said, I see heads now. He was giving khutbah, Friday khutbah. And I see riding heads. It's time to pick them up. And I'm willing to do that. I will order you to exit all of you from this door of the masjid. If anybody exits from any other door, I'll cut off his head. And he killed Sa'id ibn Jubayr, one of the greatest scholars of Medina. And Hasan al-Basri went there, and he actually was very harsh on him. And he actually called the Sayyaf. Sayyaf is the one who executes people. He had the sword, Sayyaf, Sayyaf, the one who just cut off heads. And they brought this like turban and things so the blood does not go everywhere. And Hasan al-Basri came, and the Sayyaf is holding his sword, waiting, and they put this things like. And now Hasan al-Basri came, and he told him, what do you think about me and things? And he just criticized him. Or dhalim, or jahil. And he's called him Sufi. And he is the bahr of, an ocean of knowledge. So I think when we just try to understand the term tasawwuf in Imam Ghazali's time, he was referring to these great people that he mentioned their opinions in his book. And they were all ulama, they are scholars. They're not just ignorant, they're just not all focused on dhikr and things, and they don't know anything about theology or no. They said the people of Tawheed, the people of Hududullah, they know Hududullah subhanahu wa ta'ala. But also at the same time, you can understand his criticism of the fuqaha who waste their entire life talking about, debates between madhahib. And this is really, I studied fiqh, usul. It's very dry science. Very dry. It has nothing to do with the heart. And he said, Islam came to إِلَّا مَنْ أَتَى اللَّهَ بِقَلْبٍ سَلِيمٍ. Fiqh is not going to make your qalb salim. Studying, debating theological madahib is not going to make your qalb salim. That has nothing to do with the qalb. It has everything to do with dunya, and that's it. So we just for his credit, he is the product of his society. He was in the heart of this. He was in the heart of this. But he decided to come out of all this fame, and he went in seclusion, and he wrote this book. He stayed in Damascus. You know, for someone to leave this high post, all this money and fame, and to withdraw himself and disappear, stay studying in depth all these madhahib, and then arrive to this conclusion. I believe he exaggerates sometimes in some of his teaching, but when it comes to his conclusion about tasawwuf, I wish we have real Sufi people. I hope we have some of them here. That would be very helpful. Well, the problem is that tasawwuf now, anybody can be Sufi or call himself Sheikh, and Murideen, and Tariqa, and website, and take bay'ah from people, and anybody can be Sheikh, or Mufti, or Scholar, or Imam, or Sheikh, or Sufi. Allahu A'lam. This is what I think. Any comments or questions? Yes?
So the path to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, do you really then need a guide or a teacher?
Well, this is one of the things that I think used to be part of the Sufi at that time, because even Imam Ghazali talked about this. And Sufi people, they said that if you don't have a sheikh, then your sheikh is shaitan. Because the masalik of the deen is very subtle. And it's like someone traveling in the desert. He has never been there. You can easily get lost. Right? So you need guidance. You need someone to give you guidance. If you are traveling to China for the first time and you don't have any guide, go and pigeon and then start walking the streets, you'll get lost easily. You need someone local who knows, you know, the streets and things and can take you around. So the idea is that you need to have someone whom you trust, and he knows these subtle things and can prescribe a particular awrad and wadha'if and dhikr that fits you. Okay, so he knows, for example, you're coming from very honorable family, so maybe you need to work on your humility. You need to humble yourself because you are extremely wealthy and so on. If he knows that you are a person who is a businessman, so then he will work on this part. So that was part of the process, and I would disagree slightly here. If you don't have a sheikh, then shaitan is your sheikh. I don't feel comfortable with this. And not only that, they said, okay, when you have a sheikh, then you have to accept any and everything without asking any question. And that's very problematic. We don't want to be another Catholic church. Because when the head of the church is corrupt, the entire church will be corrupt. And this is exactly what happened. And they used to say that being with your teacher is like the dead body in the hands of those who are showering. You know, the body, you know, when someone passes away, then people, you know, wash it, So in other words, when you turn him to the right to wash his back, then he does not say, no, don't do that to me. You know, has no opinion. All right? Put water and then, what is this? That's not Islam. To have full trust in the sheikh. So, and they said that to be with the sheikh even when he's wrong is better than being by yourself even if you're right. No, that's not how it works. This blindly following someone, you know, I mean, everybody has his own opinion. You are responsible before Allah for your choice, not for someone else's choice. So yeah, they focus so much on this, but unfortunately many people are taking advantage of this tradition that used to work perhaps sometime. But now anybody, as I said, and people, especially in India, and I heard so many horrible things. One brother here in our community, he told me that he went to this Sufi, you know, they have to look, you know, a certain way, and they have the big turban and the clothes and dress. And he was staying there, and a lot of men and women and people listening and seeking blessing and so on. It was the murshid, they call it murshid, right? And they teach people that you will never enter paradise until you have a murshid. So every murshid will have his own people behind him, going to Jannah. Come on. And he said, I was staying there, and I said, and then there's Asr, Salah, people go, pray Asr, come back, and the Shaykh is there. And then Maghrib, and then he said, I said, Shaykh, can I have a question for you? I noticed that he don't pray. So what happened? The people around him. It's a big business, a huge business. The people, the assistants. How dare you? No, never ask this one. Oh. You want me to burn the hellfire? And I know people, I'm not come from Egypt, and I know people, I know very well. And they inherited from their father. So the father, this sheikh, and then when he dies, his son, his corrupt son, take the role that he becomes the head of this tariqah, they call it tariqah. Alright? Very corrupt. And people go and kiss his hand and get some blessings for him.
Same thing in our country too.
Yeah, I mean, it's a huge, religion is a huge business. Keep this in mind. And many people take advantage of this. And that's why I personally believe that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said, إِنَّ السَّمْعَ وَالْبَصَرَ وَالْفُؤَادَ كُلُّ أُولَٰئِكَ كَانَ عَنْهُ مَسْئُولًا. You make a choice. We were not in Christianity. Go to church on Sunday, all your sins are forgiven, khalas, don't worry about the law. That's very problematic, very problematic. And the Shaykh will take care of it. It's like almost Christianity in Islam. The murshid, the Shaykh, he is your way to Allah. Then you have to obey him in everything he says, and you cannot take any step in your life without getting his permission. No, I totally disagree with this. Totally disagree with this. Very problematic, very dangerous. Even if you have someone that you trust, he's a scholar and he's taqi and all these things, you have your own brain. You know that story of Al-Khadr, Musa and Al-Khadr, very famous. The Sufis like this story very much. Very much. The story of Musa and Al-Khadr. Right? And because Al-Khadr was the teacher of Musa, right? That kind of sheikh. And they claim that they have knowledge that cannot be found anywhere. It's Allah bring this knowledge directly, without wasila, without medium. You don't have to read books. You people get sharia, rawa, fulan and fulan and fulan, hadith. But for me, some of them say that. Rawa qalbi an rabbi. My heart narrated, Allah says so and so. And in between them, Allah directly bring this knowledge to his heart. I'm not denying that happens. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala bring his light to whomever he wants. But for someone to make such a claim and to convince people, I get my knowledge from Allah, anybody can claim that. In church, the guys, openly, in TV. I was in the church yesterday, I was praying to God, and God told me to tell you this and that. I said, okay. And stupid people believe in this. And I can do that. If you guys believe me, then I can do that. Easy. Easy. I saw a dream yesterday, and people believe, Allah told me that everyone should pay $20. And all this corrupt pastor, very corrupt. Of course, he received tons of donations because he's spreading the word of God everywhere. He has his own private jet and live in a $7 million mansion. And this and that, and he stayed in Paris in 7-star hotels and so on, and people actually went and investigated TV. Why are you doing this? And they got actually the receipts. How much you paid for dinner, how much you paid for the hotel, how much you paid, and all these things. This is the church money that people donated to God, and God spread the word of God. I watched this. I was very interested in seeing how. And he said, yeah, I know many people talk about this and that, and why I've done this, and the answer is simple. He said, because God said so. God told me to do that. And still stupid people believe in this and still doing it. Okay, if you have, you know, so sometimes it's even difficult to imagine how stupid people are. The majority of people are. If people are a little smart, so much business around us will shut down. Plenty of business running, including religious institutions, because people are stupid. They don't question things. People want to believe. People like to believe. People, you know, it's part of their nature to believe. And when the guide uses his religious power to misguide people, that's horrible. That's horrible. That's why many people now, they criticize religions, all religions together, because it doesn't make sense. You understand? So I have a lot of observation about this kind of teaching. But generally speaking, if you trust someone or a group of people, fine. Follow them. If they make your imam better, fine. But you have to say, stop. There's something wrong here. Like this brother who says, you don't pray. How come you're sheikh and murshid, but you don't pray? I remember my father, rahimahullah, when he was, my father was like a Sufi person. He liked to visit Imam al-Husayn's shrine, Masjid al-Husayn is one of the biggest mosques in Egypt. Sayyida Zainab, Sayyida Nafisa, all these people, Ahlul Bayt, many of them are buried in Egypt. And he likes to go and pray from time to time to this masajid, and he likes to quote the verse, very famous verse by Qais ibn Mulawah Majnoon, the Majnoon, Layla. Qais ibn Mulawah al-Majnoon, one of the Majnoon, crazy of Layla. He loves Layla so much, and they refused to allow him to marry her. It's a very famous story. I don't know if you know about Majnoon, Layla. He had beautiful poetry, beautiful. It's really beautiful. And I'm glad that did not allow him to marry Layla. So if he was able to marry him, then maybe wouldn't have heard all this beautiful. He would become really, literally crazy. He goes out in the desert and he became Majnoon. You know, أراني إذا صليت يممت نحوها بوجهي. He says, أراني إذا صليت, when I pray, I face, because Layla, he was in Najd, and she went to Yemen, and he used to face Yemen. أراني إذا صليت يممت نحوها بوجهي وإن كان المصلى ورائية. Layla's direction is here, and the Qibla is here. He prays towards Layla. And he says, وما بي إشراك. I'm not mushrik. ولكن حبها وعظم الجوى أعيا الطبيب المداوية. I'm not mushrik, but my illness, no doctor was able to treat it. What can I do? Why were 21? Yeah, my father used to quote his verse that's in which he says, أمر على ديار ليلى. He used to go to the neighborhood of Layla when she used to live. She left. And he says he used to still go there. أمر على ديار ليلى. أقبل, I kiss ذا الجدار وذا الجدار. He goes and kisses the walls. وما حب الديار شغفنا قلبي. He says, it's not the houses that I love, ولكن حب من سكن الديار. أمر على ديار ليلى أقبل ذا الجدار وذا الجدار وما حب الديار شغفنا قلبي ولكن حب من سكن الديار. I love those who used to live. I told him that there are plenty of bid'ahs and people go there and make wrong things. And he said, I know. I think he said that إنما الأعمال بالنيات وإنما لكل امرئ ما نوى. If you go to show your love to the family of the Prophet ﷺ, then you get the reward for this. If you go for smoking and partying and drugs and things, ignorant people go on, then you will get what you went for. So he also he said in the village where he came from, he said this Sufi man, he'll talk so much. And I was young, and I went and I joined them and I do dhikr with them and so on, and until he said I was young, he was at Al-Azhar, and was Hafiz at the age of 12, and he said, until I heard him saying that we don't have to pray. The last ayah in Surah Al-Hijr, وَعَبُدْ رَبَّكَ حَتَّى يَأْتِيَكَ الْيَقِينَ. What's yaqeen? Certainty. What's certainty here? Death. Worship your Lord. Allah said to Rasulullah, and worship your Lord until death comes to you. And the word yaqeen also, we know the word yaqeen means belief or faith, strong faith. So worship Allah until you reach the level of yaqeen. So now we reach this level of yaqeen, and therefore there is no ibadah for us. And this ibadah is for regular people. It does for regular people, but for us, we are way above this. So we are past this stage of praying 5 times. So my dad, rahimahullah, said, I was young, 15, 16, but I said, no, that's something wrong. Thank you. So we have to be very careful when it comes to this concept of shame.
I remember that one time you said they hide themselves as we hide our sin. You know?
That's right, that's right. The real good people, they never claim, or they may never show, or talk about their ibadah, or no, they hide themselves. For them, I remember very well this story, that when one of our shuyukh, Shaykh Ahmed Masoud, rahimahullah, and he mentioned this story, I don't know what book he got it from, and this story of a person, a black slave. It was the time of drought, and people were going to pray salah, special prayer for istisqa, to ask Allah to send the rain. No rain came. And he's the one who narrated the story. He said, I went to the masjid, people praying outside. Salat was to be prayed out. They go out in the desert or an open place, they bring their children and they bring their animals and keep praying to Allah, Ya Allah, if it's not for us, for these animals and for these children, please bring the rain to us. Salat was isqa. So he said, there was nothing for a day or 2 or 3. And he said, that day I came to the masjid and there was nobody there. It's not a prayer time. Let's say between Dhuhr and Asr or something like this. And he said there's only one black guy in the southern masjid praying, and he did not feel me. And I came, I was praying, and he was praying in front of me. And then he made a very long sujood. And then after his salah, he made dua, and he said, Ya Allah, I ask you, by the secret between you and I, to send the rain to the people. And he said, before he finished his dua, the rain started coming. And then he said, he left, he did not see me, left the masjid, and said, I kept following him. And he entered the house and asked about this house. They said this is a house of a slave trader. Someone who sells slaves. He said, I knocked the door, and the owner of these slaves who sells slaves, he came out and he said, I'm interested in, I saw someone, I described him. He said, yeah, what about him? He said, I want to, who is he? He said that one of the slaves I have. Is he for sale? I said, yeah, for sale. Are you interested? He said, yeah, I'm interested. Why? I said, yeah, whatever price you want to pay for him, because he's useless to me. He does not sleep at night, all night, making noise, reading Quran and praying. And he fasts, so he's not very strong, so whatever price you want to pay, just take him. He said, I will give you any price you ask for. You don't know. So he bought him. Then he came and he was the same person. And he took him, and on his way, this slave asked the new master, said, can I ask you a question? He said, yes, of course. He said, why did you buy me? He said, I saw what happened, and I listened to your prayer, and you must be one of the awliya of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. I want you to come and live with me and be with me, and I will give you your freedom. He said. And he said, when he told him that, his face changed. And he told him, before you go to your house, will you allow me to stop by the masjid and just pray 2 hours? He said, yeah, of course. He said he went and he prayed very long. And he was making a very long sujood. And he was waiting for him, and waiting, and then he came close to see what's going on. It was a very long sujood. And he said, he heard him saying, Ya Allah, it was something between you and I. And now since someone knew about it, I ask you to take me to you right now. And that was it. He died. So this is just one of many other examples of people who really don't like people to know anything about them. There are many of them like this. For those who do otherwise, go and talk about what they do, and Allah talked to me, and the Prophet came to me, and things like this. It's not truth. سبحانك اللهم وبحمدك نشهد ان لا اله الا انت نستغفرك ونتوب اليك. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. والعصر ان الانسان لفي خسر الا الذين امنوا وعملوا الصالحات وتواصوا بالحق وتواصوا بالصبر. سبحان ربك رب العزه عما يصفون وسلام على المرسلين والحمد لله رب العالمين.